All right. Welcome back. So, what we did today, while we were off stream, like I had mentioned last time, I'm going to be trying to do some stuff off stream. That way, you're not just watching me watch a tutorial. I'm still doing a lot of that, but I'm just going to kind of go over. You can see we started painting out a lot of this, and I'm going to kind of go over today how we got started on this process and what we had to do as best as I can remember. And then if there's extra time, hopefully, we'll be able to paint over each of our different sections and make it all what we want to do. But let me just start by filling the rest of this side in. I know these look the same, but they are not. So we'll go over all of that. And thank you for watching if you are. Still haven't figured out why someone would want to watch this. Do I tell you to like and subscribe yet? I'm not sure. Alright. Let's see. So I'm just going to finish this up. That looks like a spot right there. That's a spot back there too, ain't it? Okay. Come down this way. Okay. Alright, so that should do it for that area. Now, let me get into what we did. So, I think I kind of went over last night that we did get the fab working, if I remember right. If not, someone will have to correct me. But we got the fab working, so we've got all these materials now, right? And then if you remember, we had this. This was where we set up our function, right? And then we brought that function in here. We set that function up right there. So now anything that we go in and then create, in essence, it'll, every time we run one in, it's going to do this. Wait. This is the function. I don't know what it did there. So it'll basically bring this in based on whichever function or whichever inputs we give for here, or here, and here. Alright, so that being said, we've got all of these. So we've got the first ones. So we dragged in all the things that we need out of fab. Like let's say we had this surface, we drug in these three here, and then you'll see that we attached them each to a different function, and we dragged them all into here. We created 4 different layers that we're going to be able to paint onto our landscape. We have earth, water, air, and fire. You'll see this is like the fire district, the air district, the water district, and the earth district. So then we brought those all in over here, and this part's a little hard for me to explain, but basically this is how we control how high or low something is for painting. And if something is below what we set, which was -80 on this blend height, and like you could change this, right? Say you had it as 100, you'll notice that this fills up this, and then anything below that will be painted with that. So you'll notice that changed, right? But if we put this back to -80, it's not going to automatically paint any of that. You can see it's just the stuff in this deep area that automatically gets painted by that layer that we have, and it's using these right here, running that through the landscape function that we had, and then it puts that into this blended material attributes. So this clamps all of this to whatever the blend height is, and once we get that, we fit it all into there. That's what creates this cool look. Videos that I'm watching, it's Let's Build the RPG
function.
And it is by Newman Brothers. I would definitely recommend Newman Brothers. This guy's really given me a lot of advice, a lot of help. So if you have a chance to check him out, he'll explain it a lot better than me. But that's where we're at. And that was actually pretty easy to explain. So we have plenty of time here. And now what I'm doing, well, and I guess I should explain. You come over here into your landscape mode, right? And you go to paint. And you're going to get these layers here once you do everything. I guess this is, again, something you would have to see more than here, but it won't show these right away, and you'll think, oh, what did I do wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. You need to click all of your landscapes, right? And then down here, you have to select all of them, and then you have to change this away from go glass material, and then back to garden landscape material. So that's all you have to do. And then these will pull up, and then you're going to hit this plus button. It's going to ask you to create layered or blended layers for each of these. You do that, and then you're going to be able to paint. So what we're doing now is we're just getting each of the areas painted. So I'm going to start doing this side with the air. And I'm going to... I don't like being so far out when I'm doing this. Okay. And I really like how it kind of like the river beds are already made for us. It gives us a really easy way to see where we're going here. So what we're doing is we're just creating all of this. And actually, I'm just realizing I missed a little bit right here. This should be, all of this should be that. Okay. Back to this. We come up here, go around. This is something that you normally would want a time lapse. It's a little bit boring. I guess I will do like a Bob Ross thing and tell you a story. Let's do this. Let's tell a story about my first kiss. My first kiss was my babysitter when I was 6. Her name was Lavina, and her friend were babysitting me and my brother Zach, who was a year younger than me. And while they were babysitting us, we decided that we needed to go out and play on the trampoline. And, you know, they were being good babysitters at that point. The rest of us, they were 7th graders, by the way. I was totally taken advantage of. Just want to make that clear. But basically, they take us out to the backyard to jump on this trampoline, which we do for about 10 minutes before everyone decides we need to go into a tree house. Now, we all know what happens in tree houses, whether there are aliens or bad stuff in there, or you're kissing somebody. So I kissed Lavina. Well, she kind of kissed me. I don't remember the exact details. I was pretty young, but I do remember like her suggesting that we kiss and me being like, yeah, obviously. I was totally down. So I know a lot of kids would be like, ew, girls have cooties. Not this guy. I was like, girls don't have cooties. Girls are pretty. They smell nice. Okay. So so I do it. Zach kisses the other girl. The messed up part of everything is that then, like, they left, and I was so excited about it, and I didn't have anyone to tell, so I had to tell my mom. And then she's like, you kissed my son? You're like 13 years old. He's 6. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, you're the worst hunter. I'm like, why? Anyways, so she wasn't my babysitter anymore. Well, that was one story. What's something else I could talk about while we do this stuff? What do people like to think about? The election's coming up. That's fun stuff. I'll be voting for Trump, so that's fun. What I love about it is that now it's like not that unexpected that you'll say that. Like you don't have to worry that much about saying it. You know, you can say whatever. You can vote for whoever you want. For a while there, it felt like I was kind of nervous about saying it, but now I'm like, you know what? Half the country, at least, is feeling the same way I am, so it's all good. They had a really funny / horrible, depending on your perspective, I suppose. I don't know. I didn't even think it was that funny, but it also doesn't bother me. I'm not offended by it. But they had this guy who's a roast comic, right? And I did comedy stand-up for like 7.5 years. So he gets up there and he makes a joke, and I'm going to repeat the joke, right? Like, it's not a good joke, but I'm going to say it so you know what he said, in case you don't watch politics at all. What happened was he got up there and he says, crazy times, it's crazy times right now. And this isn't a political rally, so it's not a comedy show, but they hired him to do comedy, so what's he going to do? Anyways, he goes, it's a crazy time we're at right now. I don't know if you guys know this, but there's like a giant heap of trash in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. I think they call it Puerto Rico. And it's a horrible joke. It's not even funny enough, in my opinion, but that's what he does. And sometimes, you do some stuff in comedy clubs, apparently that kills. So, you know, what can you say? That's his thing. I can't be mad at him for doing that. Um, but yeah, so that's another fun thing. Oh, there's a baby. I have a baby here. My baby Quinn. Yeah? You think so? Oh, you're a good baby. Let's see. I have 3 kids. And my youngest is Quinn. He's a baby. He's almost 1. His birthday is in 3 days. So he's adorable, obviously. That's like the main thing that he does is be super cute. What, buddy? Do you have something you want to say? Dad is painting his landscape. It's looking pretty good. You're not supposed to be here while Daddy's streaming, you know. Alright. I'm going to show him. I'm going to put him on stream. This is like when Michael Jackson revealed his baby. Only I'm not going to hang him out the window. There's the babies. There's the babies. He's a Goomba. That's what I call him. I call him my Goomba guy. Who's a Goomba guy? Oh. But he gets very mad if I don't let him type on my keyboard, so I have to turn it off. And now he's going to, yep, there he goes. He's working hard. All right. This is the story of my life. I never get anything done. But he's adorable. All right, so we're okay with it. Let's see. Can I paint while he does that? Let's try. Let's give it a shot. I'm just gonna. Oh boy. Oh, he sees me using the mouse. He's gonna come for it. Yeah, there we go. All right. I'm gonna take him out of here, away from the streaming. I'll be back. Oh, he's gonna be mad at me. He's mad at me. Honey, I'm trying to stream. Desi, I'm in the middle of the stream. Like, this is a known thing. No, I'm here. Oh. Okay. He's adorable. All right, so let's go back over here. What we're doing. Oh, what are some other things? Man, it is really hard to keep up a constant stream of thought sometimes. So you saw we already got that one side done, and this is, you know, it takes a little more time than you might like. And I do think actually I'm not patient enough, and I should probably start to be more patient about these things just to make sure I don't make as many mistakes. You know, you want it to look really good. You're going to put as much time in it as you are, so you might as well spend the extra 3 minutes to make sure that while you're doing these layers, they look just like what you want. So I'm going to try and do that a little bit more. See, like, you got these little bits here that you're like, you wouldn't even notice if I didn't get close. What's going on with some of these? Are these... Okay, get that off there. See, if you really mess up, what the heck, it won't delete it. Well, I'm gonna do it this way. Okay. Anyways, so now we'll keep going here and here. I'm really liking this too. I mean, it's really cool that like we have 4 different quadrants, and they look very similar, but I don't know if you can tell, but this side's a little bit darker than this side, and then this side's a little bit lighter than the side I'm on right now. So this is all going to be like separate areas. They're supposed to be distinct from each other, and I'm sure this guy that I'm watching the guides with is going to make this even better once we get through these beginning steps, and I'm excited to see where this goes for sure. I think it's going to be fun. And eventually we will have our actual goal, right, which is an RPG that maybe I can market. That's actually the goal, you know, is to create something I can market. And even if 20 people buy it, you know, 20 people buy whatever I make, I will be so happy if 20 people say, wow, man, I really like what you did there. Thank you for making that. You know, if I could provide, I'm hoping like 20 hours of gameplay and story, that's actually pretty hard to do. If I can pull that off, I'll be very, very, very happy. And it'll probably motivate me to do more and better work, and I'll be more capable. And I encourage, obviously if you're watching this, like, I encourage you to also take that attitude. Like, you can definitely do this kind of thing. Like, it takes time. Anything you want to, I mean, and that's something I probably learned later than I wish I had. Like, if you're under 30 and watching this, man, especially if you don't have kids. If you don't have kids, holy crap, do you have a lot of time to, like, make this happen and make something great. There we go. Look at that. And I'd say it's very important and very useful to be able to figure out how to do these things and to make something that's really going to make you and hopefully other people happy down the road. And I guess actually make other people and hopefully you, because you're probably not going to really like it unless someone else enjoys the game first. That's how you get rewarded, is by helping other people, doing good things. So, we have everything painted. I'm going to see what we do next.
Now on to our air quadrant. Entirely. If I zoom in, I could see that it's very jarring, the difference between our rivers and the subsequent land, right? It's that sharpness. And let me turn down my camera speed here too. So that sharpness is really, really sharp. And so let's see if we can adjust that in real time here. If I go back to our garden landscape material, right now our blend sharpness is 0, which is why it's just jarring. So if I set this to instead like 50, see what that looks like. Ooh, so that looks pretty good. Maybe something even better. Let's say 100. How's that looking? So now we see some of the areas with set to 100, some of the areas it's actually starting to show in our actual quadrant. So maybe back down to 30. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Maybe I can even use the landscape sculpt tools to raise that up a little bit and maybe shrink this down a little bit more. So let's do that right now. And that's all sorts of rough, right? So I'm going to go to erase. I'm going to set our brush size to a bit higher. And let me see if I can flatten this out a little bit. And there we go. So that's looking quite a bit better, but oh man, look at the tiling on our earth quadrant there. That's awful. So this is exactly what I was talking about earlier, where if you pick the wrong material, it's going to tile much more easily. Like if I look at our grass over here, that's looking pretty good. But really, the real problem here is the tiling on our earth quadrant. So what can we do about that? So for that, let's navigate back to our material.
Yeah,
and I'll expand that. And I'm going to come over to our earth material, our very top material over here. And now we're going to go over my favorite trick for really varying up how a material looks. And this trick, basically what it does is it blends two materials together at a different rate. And I learned this trick from Ben Cloward. He's extremely knowledgeable in Unreal, especially when it comes to materials. And you can see a link to his video in the description below. Really recommend you check out his other stuff too if you want to know a lot more about materials. So there's one other material that we downloaded that we haven't used yet. If you navigate to the content drawer, back to surfaces, it's this mossy riverbed material. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take this material and we're going to blend it with our earth material that we already have, really vary it up considerably. And we're going to do that with something called World Aligned Textures and a noise node. So to start, if you right click anywhere on the open graph and search for World Aligned Texture. And to be honest, I don't really understand how this is working. Ben describes it as having a three-dimensional texture and basically squashing it down to two-dimensional space, but you could check out his video if you want more information. I just know it works, so we're sticking with the pragmatic approach. And if you select the World Aligned Texture and then Control-C copy, Control-V paste, because we need two of these, right? And for this is where we're going to hook up our base color. So I can disconnect by holding Alt and then clicking on the pin. I can move this over. But the problem is when I try to connect up our RGB here, it's not working because what it's looking for is a texture object, not a texture sample, which is the same kind of thing. But if you right click and you just search for texture object, and you see it automatically pulls in our mossy riverbed, but we need it to switch to our mossy ground. So I'm just going to set this to the T mossy ground here, and I'm going to connect that up. And then for the next one, we're going to again search for texture object. And for this one, this is going to be our mossy riverbed. And make sure that's selected there. And then you can connect that up to the texture. And then you can delete out this texture sample here. Now we need to do the same thing for our normal maps, but there's a different node other than world aligned texture. So there's something called world aligned normal.
Okay. I need to make sure because these look weird.
For this one, this is going to be our mossy riverbed. And make sure that's selected there.
Okay, wait.
Our mossy riverbed, but we need it to switch to our mossy ground. So I'm just going to set this to the T mossy ground here, and I'm going to connect that up. And then for the next one, we're going to again search for texture object. And for this one, this is going to be our mossy riverbed. And make sure that's selected there. And then you can connect that up to the texture. And then you can delete out this texture sample here. Now we need to do the same thing for our normal maps, but there's a different node other than world aligned texture. So there's something called world aligned normal. And I'm going to select that here. And then we can also duplicate that one more time.
I don't know what I'm doing, so. Okay.
Time, Control C copy, Control V paste. And then again, we could select our two texture objects, Control C copy, Control V paste. And I could select our first one, and I could change this to T mossy ground, our normal. I could change this.
Okay, so we're doing the same thing here. We're gonna grab both of these, CV. See, ground. I think it's mossy ground normal, right? And again, this is one of those things where I'm not 100% sure.
World aligned normal. Control V paste. And then again, we could select our two texture objects, Control C copy, Control V paste. And I could select our first one, and I could change this to T mossy ground, our normal. I could change this one to T mossy riverbed, our normal. And then I can connect those up to our world aligned normals. Now, we're going to do two things to truly randomize this blending. So one is that we're going to set the rate at which these two things tile, and they're going to tile at different rates. And because of that, there's some automatic blending. And then the other thing is using alpha, using the rate at which it blends, we're going to use something called a noise node, which kind of randomizes that rate across the landscape. So first, we're going to set the tiling size to be different. So for this, we're going to use a constant 3 parameter like we used earlier. So if you right click and just search for constant 3, and for this first one, I'm going to set the tiling size.
Fun thing he's not doing that I can tell you, if you actually hold down 3 and left click, it'll give you a vector 3. If you hold down 2 and click, it'll give you a vector 1. You know, just fun things I know that he doesn't apparently. You know, it's always nice.
It's going to tile much more easily. Like if I look at our grass downloaded that we haven't used yet, but the problem is when I try to connect up our RGB here, it's not working because what it's looking for is a
I would love to make it through the rest of this before I get off today.
To T mossy ground, our normal rate across the landscape. So first we're going to set the tiling size to be different. So for this, we're going to use a constant 3 parameter like we used earlier. So if you right click and just search for constant 3, and for this first one, I'm going to set the tiling size to be, let's say, 200 by 200 by 200. So that means each tile of the texture is going to be basically 2 meters by 2 meters by 2 meters. And then I'll hook that up to the texture size here. But then I also need to hook that up to the normal down here. And then I can Control C copy, Control V paste, and I'm going to make this one be basically 2 meters by 2 meters by 2 meters. And then I'll hook that up to the texture size here. But then I also need to hook that up to the normal down here. And then I can Control C copy, Control V paste, and I'm going to make this one a little bit smaller. So let's do like 180, 180, 180. Maybe even...
So... and then 180, 180. 180. And we'll type that one into, or how do you do that? Okay.
In an irregular number, so something like 168. And I can connect that up to our second material in our second normal map. All right, so now
Let's try, yeah, let's do that. 168. 168. And then we're going to hook that into our other one. So we'll hook it there. We'll hook it there.
now that they're tiling at a different speed, how do we actually blend them together randomly? So in some places we'll have one material, and other places we'll have the other material. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to create some space here. So for this, we're going to use a noise node. And if you right click and just search for noise, and so for the noise, we're going to set it to a scale of just 0.01, something very small. And we're also going to choose this fast gradient 3D texture. I'm not sure that that matters, but if anybody knows anything about that, please post that in the details below. And then and so for the noise, we're going to set it to a scale of just 0.
So we're going to bring in noise. Which again, these are things that, you know, if someone is watching and is like, hey, I have some ideas, or I know what you're doing and you don't, please.
0.01, something very small. And we're
It'll
also
help
going to
anyone
choose
else
this
that
fast
ever ends up
gradient
watching
3D
this
texture.
stuff.
I'm not sure that that matters, but if anybody knows anything about that, please post that in the details below.
So we go 0.0. Oops. Jeez, what did I do?
There for the base color, and you connect the sure that that matters, but if anybody knows anything, to a scale of just 0.01, something very small. And we're also going to choose this fast gradient 3D texture. I'm not sure that that matters, but if anybody knows anything about that, please post that in the details below. And then we're going to multiply this by a factor of 4. And we're going to use something called a saturate node. Saturate works the same way that clamp does, but it's always between 0 and 1. So now we need to blend the two base colors and the two normals together. So how do we do that? We're going to use something called a LERP, a linear interpolate, which we're going to get into a lot more in future episodes. But for now, if you just search for linear interpolate, and you can connect the two textures together for the base color, and you connect the saturate up for the alpha, that's the rate at which the
Okay, so we do this and this, and then saturate. Okay.
they're blending. And then we can Control-C copy, Control-V paste for the LERP. Do the same thing here. Make sure you connect to the XYZ texture for both. XYZ texture, XYZ texture.
Okay, so LERP here. XYZ texture. XYZ texture. Saturate.
And then connect the saturate up to the alpha here. So that was a lot of work. So now what do we need to do? Well, we need to connect them to the normal and the base color respectively, right? So, and actually I've reversed the order of these. So we got our base color on top and our normal below, but that's okay. So I can delete out this normal texture sample, and instead I'm going to connect up the LERP to the normal here.
Okay. So we want to do, we're going to connect this slurp is the normal, and this slurp is the base color.
And then this LERP there. And maybe I'll reposition this slightly. So drag this out. And our poor little AO is just kind of hanging out there.
Well, that's the baby, and I think we've done enough for today. I will be back tomorrow, assuming everything goes right. I'll be back at 5:30 tomorrow. We'll keep working. I'll probably be right where